Hey there, folks. Welcome to another edition of Stranger in a Southern Land. I, of course, am your host, Jake Manning. Today in the program, I have the sketch comedy group Robot Johnson. Robot Johnson, who are fantastic. I got a small sliver of what they do up at the Comedy Festival in Salisbury, North Carolina. I mean, it wasn't the whole pie. It was just a small sliver, at least according to Candice, who... Big thank you to Candice. She's the one that lined up this whole interview with Andy, Noah, and herself to talk about Robot Johnson and the things they're doing here locally in Charlotte and other things they're going to be doing online in the future. But I'm going to shelve that conversation for right now because we get into that in the interview. So I'll put that on the back burner for right now because you're going to hear about that in the podcast. And I'm going to kind of get through the rest of this intro so we can get into that podcast so you can hear more about all the great and creative things that Robot Johnson is doing in the future. Anyway, speaking of the future, this Saturday, September 19th, I will be returning to Springfield, Illinois for Pinfall Wrestling Association, which used to be New Midwest Wrestling. So it's kind of like a wrestling homecoming for me. It's that time of year for homecomings. Maybe not for people who are 33 years old, but I get that. I'm getting a wrestling homecoming. So this Saturday, September 19th, Springfield, Illinois, Pinfall Wrestling Association. Make sure you come out for that. But if you're interested in local comedy, and speaking of local comedy, and I'm hoping that you support local comedy, that's why you're listening to this podcast, because Robot Johnson's on the podcast. But let me tell you about Tree Monstrous Comedy Wednesdays, put on by Nick Alexander, Stranger in a Southern Land guest, episode 27, I believe. Nick Alexander. He's been putting on a wonderful show at Tremont Music Hall every Wednesday, and he's been bringing in comedians that, have credits like, Conan and other late night shows. So make sure you show up for that. He's working real hard for you guys and trying to keep this thing going. He's got dates booked till October. He's got a few tentative dates for November, but he's got to keep this going. He needs your support. So make sure you come out for Tree Monstrous Comedy Wednesdays every Wednesday at the Tremont Music Hall. Make sure you support that. Also, if you want to support me, make sure you follow me on social media at Manscout Manning on Twitter, at Manscout Manning on Instagram. If you have a question about the podcast, make sure you email me at jake@sslshow.com. Or if you want to book me for an upcoming wrestling event, make sure you email me at manscoutmanning@yahoo.com. Anyways, without further ado, let's jump into this wonderful podcast with Noah, Andy, and Candice, all from Robot Johnson, here on Stranger in a Southern Land. Anyways, folks, I'm sitting here with the members from the comedy group Robot Johnson, based out of here in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I've got Candice over here to my left, if you're watching the video portion, and I have Noah in the middle, and, of course, Andy. Thank you guys for joining me today and sitting down talking to me.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for asking us.
Okay, well, this will be a little hard because I got to do a little traffic as far as everybody goes, as opposed to just one person. But let's kind of go around the table here and let's kind of talk about your background, because this is kind of about the Southeast and people doing cool things in the Southeast. Were you guys originally from here? How'd you end up here? How did you end up in this geographic location of Charlotte?
Well, originally I grew up in southern Louisiana, right outside of New Orleans. I came to visit in 1997 and liked it here and stayed. 2001, I stumbled upon a comedy group over in Plaza Midwood called The Perch and quickly became friends with those guys. 2004 or so, they asked me to come along and just help them run things. And that shut down in 2006. In 2007, we started Robot Johnson Sketch Comedy.
Okay.
So that's how I ended up here.
That's how we ended up here, and that's how Robot Johnson started. So we all tied that into a nice little bow right there.
I did. Look at that.
You are obviously a pro at this.
I've done this once or 5 times.
Same here for me. So we're at the same skill level right now.
Yay.
What about you, Noah? How did you end up in Charlotte, and how did you end up in Robot Johnson?
I was born in Charlotte, which is a rarity, I guess, these days. And then I moved to Boone after high school and went to Appalachian State. And then I did a lot of moving around. I went to Atlanta for a little bit. I lived in Fayetteville, North Carolina for a little bit, and just wound up back in Charlotte. And I used to go to the Perch back in high school and a little after high school before I moved. And, once I moved back, I tried to look them up and found out that they weren't around anymore, but then there was this Robot Johnson thing. So I, once I got back, I started taking some improv classes and started doing some stand-up. And then once I got hooked up with some of the Robot Johnson people, I auditioned with some of my writing, and that's kind of how I got back to North Carolina and involved with Robot Johnson.
Andy?
I also was born and raised in North Carolina, just a little north of Charlotte. I was actually friends with Noah in high school, and also went to App State, where I studied art, and then I lived in St. Louis for about 2 or 3 years in St. Louis, and I moved back here, and Noah told me about Robot Johnson. So I auditioned as a writer, and I've been doing it ever since.
Okay, so Robot Johnson's been around for a while. Like, how did it all start? What was the very beginning of it? Like, what was the idea? Or even like you were talking about the Perch and stuff like that. What was the idea of having a sketch comedy group based locally? Like, why was that ever an idea or a thought process?
My dear friend Sean Keenan was head writer at the Perch, and he had left the Perch and left it in my hands and the hands of the original owner. And in 2006, November, it was time to shut it all down because sometimes with comedy, that's what has to happen. And that following year, in autumn, Sean came to me and said that the Blumenthal group had reached out to him, Blumenthal Theaters, and they wanted to produce some original content, sketch comedy. And we had about 6 months to get enough content to do 6 weeks of shows, brand new show every week. So what we did is it was invite only. It was people we knew that were good, that were funny, that could write, that were stable, because with comedy, it's not always a thing. We met up on Halloween 2007, kind of got everybody together. We had about 12 people then. Everybody got along great. If you were one of the 5 or 6 people that Sean reached out to, when he called you, he would ask if you had anybody in mind to bring with you. So that's where that original group came from. And then we hammered down. Our first show was December 7th, 2007. And then for the next 6 months, we did a show every weekend. And we did 2 brand new shows a month. So we had enough material in the bank to do a brand new show every week over the summer. And we worked together a lot, and we spent a lot of time together. And that's why, our group, we talk a lot about the fact that we're at a hive mind state. And that's because that original group, we were together all the time. And as we've had auditions and folks have come in, the people that have stayed are people that just get it. We talk in shortened sentences. We have signals, code words. It's just everything is at this point at a level where we're just operating so quickly. And that comes from those first 6 months where we had to just, put our heads down and generate a lot of material. And that's where it came from. And then after those shows were done at the Blumenthal, we kept going, and we switched it from the grind of 2 brand new 1-hour shows a week to, it's been 5 or 6 different layouts or performance schedules since then. But it all started back in 2007.
Well, what was your background before then? Were you writer, actress? Like, what was your thought process? What was your goal? Like, what was it that you wanted? Well,
I came as an audience member 2001 to the Perch.
Yeah.
And loved it. I had always been a fan of comedy. The Kids in the Hall, I feel like they saved my life at some point. And I just loved it. It was things that I had never seen before. And I can organize things, and I can make sure things get done. And they needed some help with that because it was a lot of comedians.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I started with Robot Johnson. In the beginning, I did start with writing and then helping to edit and helping to direct.
Did you have any experience in writing or anything like that, or just
not really, just quick-witted and mean, and I
you just put it on paper and call yourself a writer?
I mean,
that's about it.
and then I realized that we needed because we were a group with no real leader. I mean, Sean was the leader, but working as fast as we did, everybody did everything. So I stopped writing. So I could have a neutral voice, because what happens is people start getting competitive and they want to get things on stage. And I felt like to be sort of the tiebreaker, I couldn't have, anything in the game.
Yeah, no emotional
Nothing.
interest in it
I wanted everybody in the group to feel like they had an equal chance, that the funniest bit is the bit that gets on stage. And that's where we've been. And where we are now, everybody in the group, they are free to write. They can help direct. They can help edit. It really is sort of a hive mind situation where if you sit in one of our writers' meetings or our pitch meetings or even rehearsals, it just sort of works and flows, and it's not something you can...
Because there might be somebody that have a tag on something, while you're writing or discussing something. Oh, this is good, what we go here. Everybody's involved as long as we get to the common goal of the big funny, I'm sure.
As long as you're not being a jerk about it, we'll listen. And as long as it's something that's going to add to it, it really is the best idea is what gets in there. Mm-hmm. And that's why we can work so fast. And also, we trust each other. And we like each other. And we spend a lot of time together, even when we aren't working on quote-unquote show stuff. But a lot of funny things do come from the working show times. Mm-hmm. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And as far as Noah, when you first came into the group, were you, like you said, you did improv? Were you writing stuff? Or were you trying to do stand up? Where were you at, and where did you want to fit in the world of comedy, in a sense?
I'd say before I'd even started improv or any of that, I always wanted to be a writer on some level, and
comedic.
Not even necessarily, but it would usually go that way, because I would usually go comedy, even if I was trying to write something else. But before I did improv, I wanted to do some kind of writing, like either sketch or for television, shoot for the moon, just do some kind of writing like that. And I started improv because I thought it would help with that. And
where'd you start improv? Where'd you do it?
Charlotte Improv Theater.
Oh, okay.
Or Charlotte Comedy Theater. Well, I said that wrong. Charlotte Comedy Theater.
Yes.
Under Kelly Samuelsberger.
Yes.
And
she's
and
been on the podcast before. A very wonderful person.
Oh, yeah. No, it was a great experience for me. And and I was very active in it. And then I started doing stand-up, and I was still active in improv and stand-up. And then when the chance to audition for Robot Johnson came along, I jumped on it to audition, because that's kind of ultimately what I wanted to do. That's kind of where I saw it going, is that kind of writing. And then once I got involved in that, it was like, wow, I don't have to perform, all the time and go to all these, rehearsals and everything. I could just go to some writers' meetings. I can do most of the work at home, and then...
Let the actors play it out.
Yeah, and so I started doing a little less improv and doing a little less stand-up, and just focusing more on the writing. But I would say, generally speaking, writing, and probably even just comedic writing, because I've always been, I guess, the funny kid or whatever, so that's kind of where my mind always went. So this type of an environment is kind of what I've always been going for. So...
Not a big fan of sitting in sad open mics, doing your 5 minutes in front of 10
I've
people.
done that, and I'm sure I'll do it again. I used to hit every open mic for, a good year or two, every chance I got. And, I've still hit a couple sad open mics. I won't name any places, but places where there's just TVs going and half the audience thinks they're there for trivia night, and there's just
Oh, so Jackalope Jacks, you've performed
Well,
there.
I
Okay.
wasn't gonna say, but
Oh no, they know it's sad. They're well aware. Like,
so I'm sure I'll go to another sad open mic again somewhere. So I'm not done with stand up, and I'm not even done with improv. Earlier this year, we did a little improv thing for a movie opening deal. So I'm not done with any of those other aspects, but I'm really comfortable where I am as far as writing. I really enjoy that the most, and ultimately that was kind of what was all going for. So
sketch was where you're kind of where you felt like your creative mind was leading you in a sense.
yes, exactly.
Did you kind of feel that way too, Andy, or what was your background coming into
My
Robot
background going in was I've always been just I'm sort of an anomaly because it's when I found out about this group, I was like, oh wait, you can do this? Like you can write sketch comedy. There's an actual outlet for it. Because I've always been an artist and graphic designer for most of my life.
Yeah, because you just assume that Saturday Night Live, they just pick the funniest people in the world, and then it works properly,
Right.
and then that's it, and then there's nothing in between.
So
there's me joking around in class, and then Saturday Night Live, and nothing in between.
So between Noah's Jackalope Jack sad stuff, I kind of rode his coattails into this. Like, oh,
Yeah.
He did not. He auditioned with very good pieces, and we brought him in as a writer. And since Andy has come in, he has moved into a huge part. Now, he still just writes, and I say just with air quotes because that's a huge part of it. Mm-hmm. We generate a lot of material. But also, our flyers are amazing. Each one is a work of art, and that's all Andy.
Yeah, I dig the flyers. That was the thing that immediately caught my attention right away. Rob, like, obviously the name is catchy, but then the flyers, and then you figure out what it is, and you're like, sketch comedy? Like, there's so many questions you have to find out. So
Well, that's why we changed the Facebook name and the Instagram name to Robot Johnson Sketch Comedy, because we wanted it to be easier to figure out what is this name, because it's a name that people will remember. So we've tagged the sketch comedy. That's a new thing for us, is adding in the sketch comedy to the end of it. So it's easier to track and to find it. And with Noah coming into the group, it has been great because most of the people that came into the group didn't have an improv background. We have a couple of folks now. Actually, another guy that came in at the same time as Noah has an improv background. But Noah has moved this to where he's teaching classes now, improv into sketch writing. And, everybody that comes into the group, they sort of have equal footing, once they've been with us for a little while. And he's one of the leaders in the group. Andy's one of the leaders in the group. And I could have 10 other people that were here, and I'd be able to say they're one of the leaders in the group. So, once you've bought in, and he was talking about doing less stand-up and doing less improv, what we do takes a lot of time. And when folks are wanting to audition, I put that right in the email. It's going to take up a lot of time. Not all of it is going to be quote unquote working. If this is what you want to do, it's going to take up a lot of time. But then once folks get in, they realize that they can be truly creative with all of these other people that are performing at a high level. And they end up wanting to do it a lot. We have people that are actors and actresses, and they do things around town, and they, have really sort of pulled back from that a lot to give us a lot of their time. And I love that. But, I keep telling them, you're going to miss acting. Go out and act a little bit. And they're doing that too. And it's great. And then they come back and they say, this is everything is collaborative out there. But this is a whole different thing. It's from the start. We're all in control over, what goes up there on stage. So,
well, Andy, you were just talking about the audition process. Can you just kind of explain what you had to do to audition?
Yeah, sure. We had to basically write about 3 or 4 full sketches, and then I just went in and sat in as a table read, and just we assigned parts and I got to hear it out loud for the first time, and luckily they were all laughing. So I kind of
Because that's the scary thing. Sometimes when you write comedy, is that you write it down. I'm like, this is funny to me.
Well, and all the cast members sit in a semicircle.
Oh yeah.
Because if you're going to get in front of an audience, so the cast sits in a semicircle, and they're there. So he was a little nervous.
I was nervous, and before I wrote more that you just write and write and write because you need to bring it. It's just an audition, especially as just a writer. That's what I was going in for, and you don't know until you've done it. Like I said, I've just kind of done it with friends, and I've always thought I was a funny kid, and I've liked writing and doing humorous art and stuff. So I was like, okay, you can come and audition, and I just very glad they laughed at it. Because it could have went bad, and I could have just walked right out and said, thank you for your time.
Yes, I'm not as funny as I thought. I stand corrected.
This was a lesson.
They will let you know if it's not funny.
Well, that's always good, but like what was your type of inspiration in writing? Like, what gets your creative juices flowing?
Nerd things.
Nerd things. Yeah.
especially in a sketch comedy, like it seems like very difficult to me to come to an end in a sketch, like finding what the end
That's
is.
always the hardest part.
We
early days we would do this funny thing where we would just end, sort of just like Monty Python. They would just end it.
Yeah.
And as we've all honed our skill, we're like, we can't just limp out of this. You need to. But ending a sketch is one of the hardest things. Figuring out a good way to just button everything up and get out of the sketch.
Yeah, and Noah, when you taking improv, there's probably that sense of like, okay, there has to be a beat where it ends, and nobody's just gonna walk across the stage and give you a sweep at it to save you.
Exactly. That's what I was gonna say. Is Charlotte Comedy Theater, they do some long form now, but when I first started out, it was basically just short form, and that's basically you just keep going until the host calls it, and all you can really do is just hope for a laugh, a big laugh to kind of cue the host to come over, but otherwise you just got to keep going. So that was one of the few parts I would say that improv wasn't the most helpful for, by primarily staying in short form, like the Whose Lines Anyway type of improv. And so when I started out writing for them in my auditions, and even the first year or so, endings were definitely the hardest part, and they still are kind of. Even if you've been doing it a while, it's still. I've been to some writers' meetings where even some of our better writers are like, they'll have a table read, everything's great, and then the response is like, well, that's great, there's really good stuff. That you need an ending, but and you can tell they're like, oh, I thought I wrote an ending.
Yeah.
It's usually cut it by 25% and you need an ending.
Yes. Yes.
But nothing sweeter when you find that ending. You'll be like driving and you'll be like, I got it.
Yeah.
Or just in the shower or just something. You're not even thinking about it, then it's like, ah!
Yeah, it's that sense that just hits you like a lightning strike. But even when you're first writing, what are some of the things that like gets you going and like inspire like if the creative process is going slow, is something that you do, or when do you find yourself doing the most type of writing?
There's I'd say lots of ways that can start the germ, or whatever you want to call it, of just a sketch being born. Sometimes it is just reality. You see something insane and like, okay, what would have made that worse? What could have made that better? What would happen? What would I have done if I was that person? Or sometimes it is, like they said, being nerdy. I mean, I've written some sketches just by nerding out on like Wikipedia or something and just getting really deep into something, and they're like, oh my God, this is insane. And then start writing something around it. That's happened. A
lot of times we're hanging out, and
that has happened too plenty of times.
Everybody writes for everyone at this point, can write for everyone else's voice, which is terrifying. Because I usually can hear a sketch and know exactly who wrote it, but we're getting to the point where I'm not able to pick that out as easily as I was before. And we'll be hanging out and something will happen, or an exchange or a back and forth, and somebody will say, write that down. Or somebody will come with a new character just out of nowhere. And then from that, a couple ideas will pass around, and then one or two people will say, let me take a swing at it, and then we'll have a couple versions of that. So
it's almost like a committee. It's like if you get stuck, you go to somebody else, and they kind of know where your brain's heading in a sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the collaboration of that has got to be really nice, as opposed to the days when you were doing a stand-up and you had a premise, but you got no jokes to it. But I'm sure if a premise is almost probably easier to play out in a sketch than it is maybe even stand-up in a sense.
It's hard to say. I'd say there's definitely some times where that's definitely the case, and there's some times when, with stand-up you can just do an easy like one-liner, or you can just
you're done, you're out.
You can just exactly you can explore it until like, well, there's truly nothing left here.
You're not going to get 8. You're not going to get 8 minutes out of it.
Right.
So,
And with stand-up, a premise can go for 5 minutes or it can go for 15 seconds. So that aspect of it, the kind of less restrictive aspect of it, makes stand-up easier to explore premises. But I think sketch can definitely explore premises more in depth, and you can do a lot more beautiful stuff with it, and have it be more satisfying. I think in a lot of ways. So I definitely enjoy writing sketch more than I do writing stand-up. Though there has been some times where I've tried to write a sketch, nothing comes of it, and I'll just start exploring it through a stand-up point of view, or vice versa. So, there's definitely lots of ways for an idea, like a premise, to come about.
Yeah.
And one thing that improv really helped with was forcing me and everyone else on the stage to automatically just make up some kind of premise, do something with just a tiny smidgen of information. And so I have been have had writer's block, or whatever you call it, have nothing, and then just like, all right, well, just give myself a suggestion. All right, I'm at this place, I have this object, make something happen, and then I'll type it up, and it'll still be bad, but then I'll like hand it off to Andy or somebody else, and then it'll really start to take off. So
the friend aspect helps a lot, because even if you're stuck just hanging out with your friends and riffing off each other and being mean to one another like we normally are.
We're mean to each other for sport.
Yeah, it's
sport.
We're okay with other people, but at first people get around us and it's just...
It's the most friendliest of competitions.
And score is being kept.
subconsciously.
It's like a brother-sister thing. If anybody else runs down the other person, we're all over them, but we're really mean to each other.
Happens.
So, but writer's block has usually helped with just comedic, creative minds to get you out of that. Or we play little games. Even me and Noah, we email each other all the time, these little lists to try to top one another. And it's just hanging out together that you could just spawn so many ideas. Because we're all well versed enough to know how to write a sketch. It's making something, amplifying it beyond, just the normal creativity. We're trying to make the best outside the box humor, something nobody's ever thought of type stuff. That's because there's so many out there, so many, Key and Peele and all that stuff. They're doing such a great job. And you'll watch Key and Peele and be like, darn it, they're so brilliant. So we have plenty of other sketch friends, and it's a most wonderful competitive nature to it.
Now, what type of sketch? Like, do you guys do topical stuff, or you float political, or you float around, or you take like a minute detail, or very character based, or what would you say your personal style or the group style is? Would you say?
We used to have several characters that popped up a lot.
Okay.
And we've gotten away from that a little bit because we wanted to have sketches where it just didn't stick, because every once in a while now we'll have a character that will come back in another sketch, or we'll use that character in a different way. But we have so many people, even though we are of such a like mind at this point, they are still writing different types of sketches. There's something for everybody. Some of these guys have like old-timey history stuff that pops up a lot. There's a lot of old-timey history in there. They're all old people on the inside.
Old souls.
A lot of them are old souls. But it's everything. It really is absolutely everything. We take on every subject. It's every type of sketch. and talking about Noah when he first came in, it has been, coming from improv, it was great at the beginning to watch where he started, and every show watch him grow. And we're standing there just saying, look at this guy. Where did that come from? And just see that with everybody in the group, watching them from where they started as far as talent-wise, and then them getting comfortable and them getting support from the other people in the group. Because if something's wrong, we'll tell you. If it's working, we're going to leave you alone. If it's not working, you're going to get suggestions from the room. And just watching these folks grow over time has been amazing. And, watching where Noah was hilarious. And, he's great at stand-up. He's great at improv. But watching where he started and then, 3 months in, 6 months in, a year in, to where he is now, it has been amazing to watch. And anybody that has joined us, it's the same thing. Watching where they started, and then when somebody's gotten their groove when people start writing for them, because that's the person they want reading their stuff. And where we are now, almost everybody in the group has people writing for them because they have a really good feel of what they can do. And so that alone opens us up to everything, because Noah can be 20 people in one night. Some of our other folks, Tanya, can be 20 people in one night. And so that really does give us an opportunity to have every type of sketch. We can play it clean.
But it's not as fun.
Well, it's smart.
Yeah, it's definitely that.
But over the years, we have steered, because at the very beginning, like opening night, Kelly was actually going to be in our first show. That first show, I stood at the back of the audience and just waited for a riot because the first lineup that we had, it was right out there, right on the ledge, and some of it was dirty and offensive. And so we've moved, I'm not going to say we've moved away from that entirely, but the way we're doing it is different.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the way comedy's going anyways. You don't want to be too far on the edge these days,
Yeah.
Well, we're not away from it as much, but it's just done in a
smarter way.
A smarter, more thoughtful way, rather than just hammering the filth.
Yeah, it seems like the very early 2000s, late 90s, it was hitting people over the head with it.
Well, they finally had the freedom to be able to do that, because forever you couldn't do that.
Yeah.
And then when we got the freedom, we're like, oh, we're just going to abuse the shit out of this. And
like a true 13-year-old should.
Yes.
Exactly.
And then it's great now to see it. The different audiences that we have anybody and everybody are coming to see the shows, and it's great. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's done with a little more intention. Like we know this is going to get it grown. And it does when we want it to.
And that makes us laugh.
It's just as good as a laugh.
Yeah.
It's just as good.
So as long as you get it when you want it to.
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as you're going for it. An unexpected groan can be bad.
Yeah. That's
what do you want from me?
That's
Why?
when you look at us like, what? Why? Why are you thinking this way? And then you spend more time asking questions to them.
I think the planned groans make us happier than the laughs sometimes.
It's being able to dictate what the audience is going to feel and do. This is a very, very satisfying thing.
And that is my job.
Or when there's no groan, you're like, this audience is sick.
Yeah. That's when you become very worried.
Why are we all okay with this?
Yes. Think about what you just yes-and, okay? Like, think about this, okay?
Yeah, because sometimes I am asking, okay, seriously, and I'm not mentioning any names, when we'll read something and I'll just, do you want to put this up on its feet in front of people that are giving us money to watch this? Because this is horrific and this is not done right. And sometimes they'll say yes, and I'm like, once or twice I've let it go and I've just sat there and just hope the person sweated because I told you.
Any particular instance pop in your head?
Yes, but we're not going to discuss them.
So awful, in fact, that you don't even want to repeat it, but obviously not awful enough not to put it in front of people.
As long as that what is expected.
Where I just sat there and said, well, this is going to happen. Because I write almost all of the lineups, and so I put where the sketches need to go, and
Yeah.
you can only tent pole so much, and you just have to just let it go and just sit there and say, well, this is coming after it. Let's see if we can dig ourselves out of this shithole we're about to get in. And
Like
that
one of
has
those
happened.
instances where the Saturday show is one sketch shorter than the Friday show.
We've actually never done that. We've always powered through. If you wanted it, you fought hard enough to get it into the Friday show, it is going to be in the Saturday show. You suffer through it again.
I thought we did that once. I don't want to call any names, but I thought we did. Oh,
No.
We'll discuss it afterwards.
No,
We'll discuss it
that
afterwards.
that sketch stayed in.
The one with.
Yeah, with the cord. Yeah, it stayed in.
Okay.
So you performed in front of people, but it will never be spoken of again.
He'll know when he hears this.
Okay. Well, he's been put on blast. But you talk about that being a part of Robot Johnson is a very large commitment.
It is.
Explain to me the process of you guys, because I've seen the pictures of writers meeting and then a group of people sitting around writing and discussing things. Just talk about that schedule, like how often you guys meet, how long are these processes, and then how long does it take to prepare for each show, you know?
Well, we had a huge shift this January where we were doing a show a month and we were just beating it down and beating it down. So we would have workshop meetings where people would just show up, workshop information. They could show up with an idea. They'll play some games. And then, if they want to pair off and send stuff back and forth, which happened, then we'd have what was called the pitch meeting where we would figure out which sketches were actually going into the show. By that point, we would know who was going to be in the show. We could cast things, sometimes get them up on their feet. And then what we would try to do is 2 weeks before the show, try to have 1 to 3 days of rehearsal. And then the week of the show, it was every night. And then usually we'd get one spot in whatever space we were in. And we decided this year, we had a huge meeting and we changed up a lot of things. And we shifted to doing fewer shows so we could focus on other things. But before, it was...
What other things? What caused that change in focus?
We got tired. And we just wanted to branch out. Putting shows up, or that's the life, that's what we wanted to do.
Yeah. That's
but
what got
also,
everybody involved.
That's why everybody's there. They get antsy if they don't do a show in a while. But also we wanted to do festivals, and we wanted Noah to be able to teach classes, and we wanted to focus on video. So we couldn't do all of those things and do 12 shows a year. So we pulled back from that. We changed up our operating model a little bit. We have folks that are in charge of sort of different departments now, where we have 2 guys, Field and Matt, that are over taking care of our festival stuff. And sort of everybody checks with me. Everybody knows what's happening everywhere. But we sort of have captains of what's going on with things. Like Graham handles, Twitter. Tanya handles Instagram. So we all have different departments that free up sort of everybody else. And that has helped us, and this is sort of a year of we're kind of restructuring and getting to be what the new model is going to be going into the next year, where we're able to really hit up a lot of festivals, get a lot of videos, under our belt, as well as doing shows here in Charlotte and then some other locations. But as far as the writing piece of it, the original question, it really went down to those 2 things, the workshop and then the pitch meeting. And, 2 times, if you bring a sketch in and we tell you what's wrong with it and you bring it in a second time and it doesn't work, we're going to groan at you when you try to pass it off a third time because we already told you what's going to work. And if you bring it in a third time, that's when we attack you. That's when you're mean to you for sport.
But so with the new restructuring and stuff like that, what was the thought process? Is to get people to know more about Robot Johnson, get more people to come to shows, or what was that change in business model? Why was that other than just more time? But obviously you're still doing other things. It's not like you're we're just going to do less shows so we have more time to do anything else. You're doing other things that are time, intensive in making these videos. You were just talking about stuff that you were filming and stuff like that, Andy, beforehand. And what's the thought process on posting some of these videos online for Robot Johnson?
That's what we're having fun figuring out. We're still early in it, but this whole year's been just kind of focusing on, like we said, just playing around with, seeing where our kind of stretching point is. Mm-hmm. So we want to do videos, and it's one of those kind of almost 2015 things. Like, why don't we have videos up online? Mm-hmm. Let's take a moment.
Creative people. These sketches are written, and then they just kind of go into the ether.
Right, and that's kind of the good with the live shows too. We want to stress, look, if you're there, you're seeing something for the first and almost last time, because you don't know what you're going to get. Some of these sketches might come back and some don't, but
and some are never talked about ever again, obviously.
Right. And you're there for the live experience. Like, I'm with Robot Johnson for this 2 nights a weekend type thing each month. But then we wanted to kind of branch out and see where our web/video stuff is. So we're just trying to figure that out. Just get more, I guess, modern even, just with...
My thing of it was, these are talented people that are working hard. They are putting a lot of time into honing their skill. I mean, if you see us, we've cultivated an air of like good time, party, come out and drink with us people. Mm-hmm. And we are that. But there's so much work that goes into it, and they're so talented. I really want more people to see them. And that's great if we get a couple hundred people out on the weekend. But there are thousands and millions of people that need to see these folks. They're doing great things. We go to festivals and people come up to us and they want to see more. Well, the way to do that is to go to more festivals. The way to do that is to have a video presence.
Yeah. They may not be able to see you live in Charlotte, but they can then see you online and they see more about you. Therefore, they're a fan, and geographic location doesn't hold them back.
And that's what I wanted for the group. For so many of the people in the group, they really could be snatched up at any minute and make something great happen for somebody that gave them a shot. And for me, at least, that was part of why I wanted to free them up as much as we could to have these other things happen for them. For me, at least, it all went back to exposure for these talented people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Because we're now in an era where auditions are done over Skype, like everybody. I'm sure probably when you thought you were getting into comedy, you were like, well, I either have to go to LA or New York. But just you were saying before, Andy, is that having videos online, people anywhere anybody can see it. Mm-hmm. Anybody can snatch you up and like, oh, I like this. I'd like to know more about you. Let's discuss this. And when you do make that move, you actually have something, as opposed to just like, hey, I'm one of these bodies ready to be destroyed by the system, be one of those bodies they paved roads with into the city of Los Angeles. I'm sure that's probably an attractive process when you said.
Definitely. I would definitely agree. And that's, we definitely want to get some videos out there for the exposure and things like that. And also just kind of a side note, just the general different kind of creativity going into making videos as opposed to just a live sketch. And that's one of the things that's really attracting me to want to get into that process, is to be able to do different stuff that logistically wouldn't make sense on the stage. You can do in a video sometimes.
Yeah.
So I'm really been wanting to do that, and different stuff to go on the website that will draw in more traffic and exposure, but also just the creativity or the challenge of making a video or making a column or a blog or something, just any kind of multimedia, anything.
Yeah, and I'm sure like I said, coming from a background of stand-up and improv, and now you have sketch, and now you have the possibility of video. You probably get these ideas like, I know this is funny, but I don't know where this fits, if this is a stand-up or is this an improv thing or is this a sketch or a video thing. So that you're probably a little frustrated like where that goes. But you can now take an idea that you now know is funny and then ride it down the best road possible, medium-wise.
Exactly. Whereas if we were in the 80s or something, it would just be L.A., New York, Chicago maybe, and then that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we like Charlotte. Why not?
Yeah.
We love the city. So
Yeah, if somebody wants to come here and let us
yeah.
do a weekly or monthly show and produce it here, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, and you look at the kids in Hall, and they started in...
And they stayed there.
Yeah, they stayed exactly there, and Second City was... they ran out of Edmonton, I think the first year. It's the middle of nowhere,
And the Broken Lizard guys, they're writing and doing their own movies. And, I feel like that's something we could also do with these folks. They can do movie scripts. They can.
And there's plenty of people that are around here that have worked in production because of the filming that went on here for the last couple of years and stuff like that. There's multiple production people. Just
6 people in our cast, 6 or 7. Well, Andy had got dragged into it through Robot Johnson. Mm-hmm. He does stuff for movies and commercials too, because so many people in our cast are in production.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so when you have these resources, why not use them to your ability?
Yeah, absolutely.
The whole Robot Johnson is just so talented. We got just an A team of people. We even got a lawyer in case we need.
Yeah, that's always nice.
All different backgrounds, just
everybody has at least 2 jobs.
Yeah, it's just this great. What do you do? Oh, you're marketing. Great.
Yeah,
you run our Twitter now.
It's just we have an IT guy. Awesome.
You are now our web guy.
Yeah.
It does sort of work out like that. We have we have 2 graphics people that are amazing.
Yeah.
People that can do costuming, and Andy has done amazing things with props where we just hand them this jumble of kindergarten craft items and say, make this thing into Aquaman, and we come back and Andy has made it into Aquaman.
Nothing more fun than low rent props, just markers and.
But everybody does. Everybody has 2 jobs. You're in the group, you're writing, you're performing, but also everybody does something else. Andy, because he doesn't get on stage, he runs the sound for us. Mm-hmm. Lucy and Tiffany and just everybody does wardrobe stuff, and Tanya has a great eye for that. And just everybody in the group, they're doing more than one thing. So when he says just a writer, I kind of twinge a little bit, because even though he doesn't get on stage, Andy, he does a lot for the group. And Noah writes and Noah performs. Noah also teaches classes, and Noah gets us involved in other things. And Noah's always coming up with, these other ideas to pull us out of the shell, because I'm generally a little reluctant to move outside of where we are, because it can just become a catastrophe quickly. Yeah. And so these guys are pushing me to move out of what we're already doing. And so everybody really, it's a great balance that we have right now.
What are you trying to push them to, Noah? What are the things you're trying to push Robot Johnson? What's your evil plan, sir?
I guess the most recent one was the Charlotte 48-hour film project. I convinced the group to try it, and that was an amazing, awesome experience. And just various schemes, just scheming.
Just schemes. It's a world domination.
But also, just with the classes, in case anybody's wondering, go to failurefactory.com, contact Matt Martinez, plug. But things like that. Also, just anything that's kind of out of the norm. If we can do something different, or we can. That's
joining. There's an improv throwdown thing, and he's like, hey folks, even if you've never done improv, come on out, and we're gonna team up with these other improv folks. And so he's bringing a lot of things to us to get out of what we're already doing.
Yeah, a lot of it's just continuing to bring comedy to Charlotte. Yeah. And now we're hey, let's start bringing comedy to as many people as we can. So we're just working that out, and we're just having just a ball doing it. It's really a lot of fun. And when we said we're doing less shows, I do think we're actually working more.
Yeah,
we really are.
Yeah.
That at the start of the year, we'll do less shows to free up space. It's we're doing more than we've ever done.
Because you're doing it in different areas. That's why when she said, we just got tired, but we started to do festivals and we started to do this, I'm like, those already are big.
It's a different kind of tired. It's because we have 2 meetings a month where we all just sort of, whoever can make it makes it. And if you're in the room, you're in the room, and that's the people that make the decision on what's going to happen, unless I'm not there, and then I get a text message. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. Meeting up twice a month. What's going on with this? What's going on with that? Going back to the meeting we had in January, and just sort of a check-in, and then the video stuff, and then the festival stuff. And we are working more than we were before, but it's a different grind. It's not, okay, well, the show's over. Monday, let's get in there and do our workshop. And then, so it's changed it up a bit, which is great, because when you have this many creative people, you have to keep moving the ball. You got to keep moving it around, or they get a little tired. If we run a sketch more than 3 times, they're annoyed if I bring it up again. I'm like, that sketch has only been seen 6 times. Why are you annoyed right now? Well, we've done it so much. You did it 3 times. You learned 8 pages of dialogue, and you just want to not do that anymore? Well, we'll see it in a year or 2.
Well, I was just saying, for those festivals, they come in nice, and it'll bring out some of the better ones so people can see that, You might want to come back to those.
And we do. And now they know with like the festival stuff that we're going to do old stuff. You can't write new things for the festival. Yeah. And they're okay with that. But if there's a show in town and I try to bring up things that they've done too many times, they're just not having it. So this working in different ways, I think has helped a lot, because they just want to keep doing new things and keep doing new things. And, with our monthly shows, we had to finally shut it down, because that's 12 to 14 brand new sketches, and you're learning all of that and blocking and directing. And finally I had to back everybody up and say, we don't have to do 14 brand new sketches a month. We can pull 3 or 5 out from before. And they relented, but at first they're like, no, brand new show every month. And they just want to, there's so much creativeness. They just want to keep doing it and doing it and doing it. So that's where we are working more, but we're working a lot different than we used to.
Well, as we get closer to the end, is there anything else you want to talk about more about the future of where this new direction of Robot Johnson is heading? Like other things that maybe we can be on the lookout for? Like, have you posted any of the videos online yet, or when can we be looking for those? Or
we're going to put up there are a couple of edits for the 48-hour film project. Luckily, they drew mockumentary. So they created a mockumentary, and we're going to put that up on the Robot Johnson stuff. Okay. We'll be next weekend at the Lee Street Comedy Festival, 21st and 22nd. So there's a video, there's a festival.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm actually doing the open mic at the Lee Street, so I saw you guys just
nice.
added
Are you
today.
doing the Thursday?
Yes, the Thursday.
Ooh, okay.
So I'll be there for that. So.
And then, the lineup, AJ Schrader is going to be there. We'll talk about that after. He's amazing. Our best friend comedy group, Monfrere, he was one of the founding members of that, and AJ's amazing. And now the Foxes are so good. And Johnny Millwater, so good. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I just saw his 20-year obscurity show. It was fantastic.
Yes.
It was really great to just...
But, in the long run, we're going to sit down in December. Every December, I throw a Rojo-versary party. And, we'll have our party. And then a week or 2 later, we'll sit down and talk about, the meeting from this year and what have we done and what haven't we done and where do we want to go. But, I think we're going to keep moving forward with this model where we do as many shows as we can, but we also work on video, and we also work on getting into festivals. So I think right now that's going to be the go-forward plan.
Yeah, because your fan base can grow, and you don't have to be so restricted to geographic location. And that's I think that's smart, and it's very to be artists to be that smart as far as marketing. That's fantastic. So. As far as when we speak of marketing, where can we get in touch and be knowing when all these wonderful and great things are happening? The Instagrams, the website, places where you guys perform, upcoming performances. This will probably come out first Monday in September. So please, anything that you guys got on the horizon you want to let people know about?
Robot Johnson Sketch Comedy on Facebook. We are on Twitter. Our Twitter account won funniest Twitter in Charlotte. Instagram, we got an award for Instagram as well. We're Robot Johnson Sketch Comedy as well on Instagram. Those are the three biggest places. We do have a website that we are going to be revamping quite a bit since we are moving into video. And since we're going to be moving around to different venues, which is also something we want to do. So we're going to be moving our website around a little bit, and that's robotjohnson.com. But Robot Johnson Sketch Comedy on Facebook, Robot Johnson on Twitter, and then Robot Johnson Comedy on Instagram. And all of those are great. We keep track of those a lot. And as we're moving around here and there, that's going to be the best place to be able to find us, is to follow us on one of those, and you'll be able to know when we have our shows. So right now we don't have a dedicated every month at this place at this time, which I actually kind of like, because it makes people, before it was just, I'll catch the show next month, but now they don't know where we're going to be
active. It gives them reasons, and always check the Twitter, always check the website, always check the something. And if you're putting something up, it drives traffic there.
Yes, and so we're going to be relying on those things going forward.
Okay. Gentlemen, anything else you guys want to plug that we've mentioned? Or
covered on my end.
Yeah, I believe that's everything. I don't know what's coming up after September.
Andy, we had to save it for that for the end.
We knew that was going to happen.
I knew it was.
But if there isn't anything else, like, you guys have been very gracious with your time on a Friday. I thank you very much for that. I know you're busy people, and you probably got some more writing or some other creative aspect that you have to work on at this moment in time. So thank you very much for joining me today, and thanks a lot.
Thank you.
No,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.